machine, can we transfer parts from one person to the other? That's an interesting question, but that has made life of philosophers very, very difficult, because lots of ethical questions come in when you ask about moving organs from one person to the other. But that has fueled black markets. So body has become a commodity. So black market of organ trade, that has been a big problem. So it has made body a trade commodity, but also fueled the black markets and also encouraged salesmen to go into this trade. So long debate. But looking in the past, transplant is not a new concept. If you look in the history, Egyptians and Chinese were talking about skin grafts. They were taking skin out of people who were just dying and transplanting it. First documented transplant was in 16th century when they used the first skin graft. But 19th and 20th century, lots of skin grafting was done, lots of transplant was done, but all failed miserably. Very interesting historic picture, and I'm going to take you through it. What do you see here? An ulcerated leg being transplanted, but something very interesting. All white people standing here, and leg is of a black person. So blacks always were blackmailed, and they were the disadvantaged community for a long time. And then white, they dominated the world. So this picture shows you about the exploitation of black people, and all the whites were trying to benefit from it. A very ancient picture about transplantation. More exploitation. In the history, teeth were transplanted from disadvantaged black people and small children into wealthy ladies. So this is teeth transplantation which was happening in Victorian era. These are all paintings from historical times. So organ trade has been a problem in the past. But then when did the modern transplant started? 1954. Joseph Murray in Boston. He did the first successful kidney transplant between two twin brothers. They were 23 years of age, both twin brothers. So pulled the kidney out from identical twin to the other. No problem of rejection because there was no immune rejection there. They were identical. Successful transplant, first successful kidney transplant done at that time. Next successful transplant was Christian Barnard in South Africa, 1967. Now Christian Barnard trained in UCL, University College London, but he was not allowed to do heart transplant there. So he went to South Africa and did this transplant. His first transplant died day 18 of pneumonia. But second transplant lived for 2 years, and that was done in December 67, regarded as success. And heart transplant has become successful. This is one of the historical picture taken in Cape Town when he was doing this transplant. Liver, not that successful. Thomas Starzl, he started before Christian Barnard trying to attempt liver transplant, but failed. Many of his patients died. So he was called playing God, regarded as evil in newspapers. His transplant program was stopped. He went back to laboratory again and then started experimenting. He transplanted five people in a row, all died within 2 weeks. The first child died of bleeding. So he thought because liver is taken out, bleeding is a problem. So he used fibrin in the next patient. Next patient died because of clotting. So he failed and failed and failed. But then cyclosporin came in 1972, and somebody was trying to discover an antifungal in Sweden, but they picked up their immunosuppressive properties. It's freely available in Pakistan now, but that changed face of transplant surgery. So Thomas Starzl, he did first successful liver transplant in a patient with biliary atresia in 1983. And then he's regarded as father of transplantation now. So the important thing is keep on trying. As Thomas Edison said, our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most certain way to succeed is always to try one more time. But that gives rise to another question. Can we do this in this era? Start something and patients keep on dying. We'll be stopped. And then there are examples, somebody who was doing tracheal transplant using stem cells, and he's currently going through court, and I think he's in jail, one of these surgeon in Norway, but that's a different story. So I'm not going to stay on this slide for long, but transplant is a normal thing now. It's happening like a routine operation all over the world. In Pakistan, talking of liver transplant, there are 10 transplant centers here, and it's a normal routine operation that happens every day. And every type of transplant is being done these days. But is that it? Where are we going to go in future? So this is what you do all the time. We think transplant as a surgical operation, that surgeons do this operation and we lead this operation. But is that where the transplant is going to head? And I think that's the question. And this morning there was some discussion about cost effectiveness of these things. But I think the future of transplant is quite interesting. So what are the problems right now with transplant? The biggest problem is shortage of donor organs. We don't have enough donors. There are too many people waiting for transplant, but there are not enough donors. In Pakistan, the cadaveric transplant is not normal. It's not happening. It happened in probably two cadavers, I believe, but not more than that. But living transplant happens. Somebody from the family has to give an organ away. So we call it gift of life. So there is storage of organs, storage of donors, risk of rejection. You put it in, go through a major operation, it can reject. But then patient has to go through lifelong immunosuppression. So lots of issues are still there with transplantation, although it's a life-saving event. So the first thing is, when you take the organ out, you have to preserve it, because it comes out of body, which is physiological, but when it comes out of the body, it has to be preserved. In Pakistan, it's not a big problem because life-related transplant is being done. So it comes out of body, and in a very short period of time, it goes into another body. But in Western systems, when organ has to stay out for hours and hours and sometimes days, there has to be a way for preservation. So cold preservation is something which is very common, and that was my research degree also. You see this human organ in transit all the time. You can see them, people carrying them on the airports, in the trains, in the ambulances, very, very normal. But what happens in cold preservation? You cool the organ down to 4 degrees centigrade, take it out, store it in preservation solution at 4 degrees centigrade. For hours it is in transit, goes in operation theatre, put back in the recipient body, and then it warms up to 37 degrees centigrade. So there is hypothermic injury, cold ischemia, and then reperfusion injury. So organ undergoes through a lot of insult through this period. So Peter Friend's group, when I was doing my research in cold preservation, Peter Friend group was doing research in warm preservation. And that is becoming more common now, that you keep liver in its normal physiological situation. I'm using liver, I'm a liver surgeon, so there's a bias here, that's why I'm using liver as an example. So this is a model in which liver has got two inlets. So blood is going in through portal vein, hepatic artery, coming out through IVC, going through the pump, getting oxygenated, and then flowing around again, and bile is being collected. So the idea is to keep liver in the physiological condition outside the body. So you provide an oxygenator, a pump to replace the heart, a dialysis unit because it keeps on getting centrifuge and refiltered, nutrients are given, and hormones are given. So all this physiological environment is given to the liver while it's being transported. And this is happening now in many transplant units. So transplant is happening there, and this machine has got liver there, and the blood is circulating, so keep the liver alive. So that's what's happening now. But what's going to happen in future? Can we grow organs outside the body? And I think that's the biggest question. That's where organ bioengineering comes. So we go out of medical field, and you see biology, physics, mathematics, information technology, electronics, and medicine, they all combine to form biomedical engineering. That is going to be the specialties in future for our patients, that we can make organs outside the body. But can we do that? Lots of people say it's playing God. Can you make organs outside the body? But it is possible by combining all this, and I'm going to talk about it, especially with 3D bioprinting. You can actually print the organ out. And Comstat University has got a 3D printing machine. We have not used that for human tissue, but it can be used for human tissue. So we have got potential to create personalized organs for patients where there's going to be no rejection and no donor which is involved in giving those organs. So briefly about artificial devices. Lots of work is happening to put artificial devices in the body to replace transplanted organs. Artificial heart, circulation, it's just a pump being used, being put in patient's body as an artificial heart, which will keep on pumping. Artificial kidney, like a dialysis unit, it's a big dialysis unit outside the patient, which we see for our patients with kidney failure. But if you squeeze it down, make it small, you can put it inside the body, and that research is happening. Artificial lungs, what is a lung? It's a pump with exchange for oxygen. Artificial pancreas is already in use. Insulin gets pumped in the body according to blood level. Artificial liver. So all these things are happening right now, but the problem is size, how you're going to put that inside the patient body, but this development is already happening. Stem cell. I'm sure you've heard about stem cell. What does stem cell do? You can program a stem cell to produce anything. Our life has started from a single cell, and we are into human being with billions and billions of cells doing different function. So you can teach stem cells to grow into the organ of your choice. So if you can do that, you can grow viable organs outside the body and put them inside the patient. So that is something which is happening right now. Bioengineering. This is using synthetic material, stem cell, and making organs. So it's like scaffolding. You put up a scaffolding, use stem cell, and make the organ of your choice, and then use it for organ transplant. So that is eliminating the need of organ donor, but making personalized organs for patients who are going to benefit from it. So this is going towards tissue engineering, personalized medicine, and then regenerative medicine is, again, grow things outside the body. So a lot of work is being done, and you'll be surprised to see what the results are. This is an article from 2nd of April, just this month. And this has been done, that lymph nodes have been injected with stem cells, and those lymph nodes will become livers outside the body. So this first person has been, 6 lymph nodes have been injected. So patient with a liver failure has got 6 livers in the body, small livers doing function of the liver. So this trial has been in Nature, has been talked for last 2 and 3 years, and I was following this trial, but now they've already done this. So these things are happening in the transplant world, which are massive big steps forward. Now that's an interesting, very, very interesting topic and very controversial topic for Muslim world. Xenotransplantation. And if you Google now, the first genetic modified kidney transplant was done last month. And just yesterday, an artificial heart and a genetically modified kidney has been put in one patient, of one female. That is yesterday's news. So, and you see a picture of a pig here. But so xenotransplant is transplanting organ from animals to humans. But why pig? That's a big question. Primates or gorillas and monkeys were tried in the past, but interestingly, pig is genetically most close to human being. That's a very interesting observation. Second thing is, the organs are the same size as humans. Third is, easy to produce. And fourth is, you can easily genetically modify it to be exactly compatible as human body. So, and pig has been used in medical world for a long time. You know, insulin was taken from pig pancreas for a long time, and that was even used in Pakistan until probably about 10 or 15 years ago, when it was cow's pancreas which were used. The biomeshes are used from pig. Heart valves, they are pig valves. So pig has been used in medical world. Lots of interesting discussion. We don't have time for that discussion, but just to mention that genetically modified pigs are being used for xenotransplant now. The only problem is certain viruses which can be transmitted from pigs to humans, they are still a problem. Immunomodulation. We do immunosuppression right now. When the organ is transplanted, we suppress the immune system, and that gives problem to lifelong immunosuppressive problems. But the new concept is immunomodulation, that you change the immune response, not suppress it, but change it. So that will address rejection of transplant organ. Now, I'm throwing lots and lots of new scientific terms here. Every term will take a full hour of discussion at least. But I just want to introduce things which are happening in transplantation for future. Nanotechnology. Nanotechnology is producing nanoparticles which will go right down to the area where they have to target and not systematically cause any problem. So you can exactly take it carefully and place it to the organ where you want to target it. And then that's a big step forward, nanotechnology. Has anybody heard of CRISPR Cas9 system? This is something very interesting, and our group is looking into it. CRISPR is, you have heard about designer babies, that before birth you can modify genes and then can make babies as you want them to do. You can enhance certain genes and make them a footballer or a musician or a writer or whatever. Big ethical questions. Do you want designer babies? It's not allowed right now. Nobody's at the moment, to my knowledge, doing it. But CRISPR gene can be used to modify organs, that's just cutting and transporting genes, so that you can modify immune system so that there is no rejection in transplantation and organs are exactly compatible. So big step forward for technology there. So that's what we are moving to. Transplant medicine and surgery is going to be very personalized, no risk of rejection, and tailored treatment to individual patient. It's not a mass market. It's individual. Every patient is individual. They've got individual genes thumbprint. So you have to modify it according to that thumbprint. So that's why we need our own genetic data for our population, then individual data, and that's something which I think we are trying to establish the genome project here, but we don't have enough research funding. So we need to get foreign companies to come in and invest in our future here. But the problem always will be regulatory and ethical consideration, and they are the problem now in transplant. I've talked about organ trade. I'm sure you've all heard about organ trade in Pakistan. That was a big newspaper headline in the past. Luckily, I think that has been addressed somehow. But then moving on, we talked about designer babies, modifying things. They can be done. But then the religious groups talk about playing God, and that's where research stops. You know, stem cell research was stopped in America when George Bush was president, because he thought that stem cell will be playing God. So he stopped all the funding for stem cell research. So stem cell research went behind or backwards by 8 years, because for him in Christianity, the gene modification was not allowed. So we are going to face these things. I've talked about xenotransplant. That's again an ethical question here in our country. Funding and investment. We don't have it right now. We have data. We have got, but what we can do is we can come up with options and ideas to attract funding here, so that we can run clinical trials here, and we might be able to contribute. But at the moment, in our current system, we don't have our own funding to run these things. Now this guy is the guy who used stem cell to create trachea. There's a Netflix movie on this also. Paul McCartney, he was in Norway. He used stem cells to make trachea, and he had some complications. So he was thrown out, put in jail, and went through a horrible period of time. There's still a debate whether he's an innovator or a bad surgeon. We don't know. But that's the problem with the innovators now, that due to ethical issues and regulatory issues, some of us might end up in jail with all these futuristic ideas. So we need collaboration between researchers, clinicians, industry, and policymakers. So unless we get this collaboration, we are not going to move forward in research collaborations. Now, I mentioned that this morning about education and training. We've talked about something outside medicine, but that's related to medicine. So lots of doctors who want new careers or new career pathways, those pathways are opening up for you. You can go into these specialties. It's still about patient care, but these are new horizons. You guys are more computer savvy, more into digitalization of healthcare system. So there are going to be new opportunities opening up in Pakistan to take this initiative forward. So think about it. These things are commercialized. They can be income source for you. They can be new horizons for you guys. So, but don't forget about the patient. And that's an interesting thing. We all talk about this room. There's no patient representative here. We talk in MDT meetings. There's no patient representative here. But is that what our patients want? In UK, in all our clinical trials, it's compulsory to involve patient groups so that we go in the right direction. We call them PPI group, public patient involvement. So every trial will have clinicians, patients, and public making those decisions. So never forget the patient who are either the beneficiary or sufferers from all these new developments. So I don't have a crystal ball to tell you where we are going, but I think it's a long road forward for us. But there are going to be lots of innovations in future that are going to change the world of transplantation. We were just talking about it this morning that we need 10,000 liver transplants a year in Pakistan, and we don't have capacity to do even 500 right now. So that is a huge gap to fill in transplant world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Irfan.